Nick with Sweetwater here, and today I have the extreme good fortune of being joined by this young chap to my left, Pete Dankelson. Pete, thanks for coming.
Hey Nick, thanks for having me on.
It'll be $20 by the way, but you can pay me afterwards.
Uh-oh, you got Venmo?
Oh yeah, I've got that. Anyway, over the last 3 decades or more, through my work with Marshall, Jackson, EVH, and also Guitar World, I've had the extreme good fortune to interview and spend quality times with the likes of the following people. And I warn you, this is a huge name drop session. Here they go. Slash, Tony Iommi, Edward Van Halen, may he rest in peace, Dimebag, may he rest in peace, Billy F. Gibbons, Kirk Hammett, Paul Gilbert, Angus Young, Eric Johnson, Nita Strauss, Kerry King, James Hetfield, Lita Ford, Marty Friedman, and also my good friend Lizzie Hale. Now, all those folk are guitar heroes. This one, however, is a little different, in my opinion, because this time I'm interviewing a guy who I consider to be a hero who also plays guitar. Why do I say that? Well, Pete's an incredibly inspirational young man, as what he's endured in his mere 22 years on this planet could well have taken other people out of the game, but he's not out of the game at all. He comes out every morning smiling, kicking ass on guitar, and spreading positivity. Pete does this via his playing and also his personality, which is infectious, and he speaks in public a lot to young kids. He also speaks via social media, and now in print. Dun, 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 dun. Yep, we're here to discuss his new book, How I Learned to Rock My Life, the Pete Dankelson story. How good is it? Sorry. How good is this book? Well, in terms of motivating you to switch off Netflix and Twitter and actually get off your backside and do something to make yourself the best you can be, I can honestly put it up there with this masterpiece, Never Finished by David freaking Goggins. And the thing about Pete's tone is, it's profanity-free as well, so it's suitable reading for young kids as well. Pete, thanks so much for joining us. That'll be $50 for the intro, by the way.
Okay.
What inspired you to write this book in the first place? Can you tell us the story behind the story?
Yeah, the story behind the story. Well, it really began, I can't lie here, it's mostly Mom's passion project. Basically, it was the idea of, people on social media, they see me playing guitar and all this, jamming, having fun. Right. But they don't really know the other side of my story, which is with, I was born with a medical condition called golden hair syndrome. And I've had to go through a bunch of surgeries. I'm missing my left ear. The book was kind of a way to tell that side of my story. Okay, you see me on social media as this guitar player, but there's a little bit more to what's going on. So the book kind of shines light on, a lot of the medical procedures I went through, kind of growing up with golden hair and kind of some of the social, aspects of that as well. And of course, there's, lots of guitar talk later on in the story when I, picked it up and started playing. But for the most part, the book really kind of shares the medical side of all the stuff I've been through.
Now, the thing is that the syndrome you were born with, that you had a really small jaw, and as you said, you were missing your left ear. And I know for a while you had a false ear. Now you've stopped wearing it. Yeah. Although you did one great post with a Marshall behind you with the ear kind of falling off, blaming it, which was brilliant. You're not a why me victim kind of guy. You're like, what makes you so uplifting with regards to your own situation and passing on to others?
Well, for me, it's definitely my family. They're such a big support network. If I was in the hospital, I always have my family. I have my family by my side if there's anything going on. And, of course, when I get home from the hospital, too, and I'm recovering, at home, there's the dogs, too. Those are always the best, those are always the best kind of support as well. And friends, too. And, when I did have some of those big procedures, family and friends were always reaching out to help out in any way they could. And then, of course, when the guitar came along into my life when I was 15, having music as kind of that support crutch and picking up the guitar and playing, that was a big one when that did enter my life.
And by the way, folks, when Pete talks about procedures, he's not talking about 2, 3, 4, or even 5. How many have you had to date?
I've had a few more than that, that's for sure. It's 37.
Good grief. Yeah. Can you imagine that? I can't, to be honest with you. That's one of the reasons I hold this man in such high esteem, well, young man in such high esteem, is Because that would have taken me out of the game, maybe. I'd be sitting on my couch going, why me? Where you've almost got this why not me kind of approach.
It's hard to keep that positive attitude up. I mean, you know, you definitely have some of those moments where it's kind of like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? Kind of an example of this, really. I had this massive airway surgery quite a few years ago. Basically, one of the things was I had an open stoma for 19 years. Basically, when I was born, one of the things with Goldenhurst syndrome is my airway is really small.
Right.
So I had a trach for 4 years. But then when I was 4, I got the trach removed. So basically, the trach came out, but the doctors wanted that hole to stay open because, you know, if anything, you know, happened and I needed to be intubated, you know, kind of a scary situation. But if that did need to happen, there was an easy way to do that. Because the airway is so small, it's a bit dangerous. So the hole stayed open for 19 years, and then I finally got the approval. I had a huge jaw surgery a few years before that, and that basically moved the lower part of my jaw forward because I was also born with a small jaw.
Right.
So what that jaw surgery did, there's a titanium implant, and I think from about here to here. And then there's an x-ray somewhere. There's a photo. You can see the jaw implant here. There's plates and screws on the side because, you know, when they had to move everything forward, they also had to, you know, re-secure everything over here. So basically, you know, once the implant was in place, they secured everything. I had my mouth wired shut for 2 weeks. That was fun. My brother loved it, but
I was going to say, my wife's watching this going, please have that procedure so you can shut up for 2 weeks. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, Jake loved it, but there was this whole procedure. I had the jaw wired shut for 2 weeks, and then, you know, once the jaws got unwired, it was kind of relearning how to talk because there was so much swelling and, you know, everything got moved around. So that was the jaw surgery. That was kind of a stepping stone to the airway surgery, because with the jaw surgery, moving that lower jaw forward, it made the airway bigger.
Gotcha.
So it gave me more space to breathe. So that was when the doctor said, okay, he can get the hole in his neck closed. So in 2019, I had the big procedure to get that closed. And that was a tough one because I was in ICU on a vent for like a week. I'll be honest, I was sedated for like a week, you know,
right,
kind of in and out. So it wasn't much moping around. It was just snoozing
gotcha. Okay,
for the most part. But basically, there were a couple more procedures I needed to do. There were a couple. It was kind of a step-by-step process. But, you know, the hardest part was over. I was extubated. Things were looking good. And you said earlier about, you know, keeping a positive attitude. And I mean, it's definitely tricky, especially in a situation like that. You know, you just got extubated. You know, there's all this kind of craziness going on. You know, you do the best you can to keep a good mindset. But, you know, it can be tough.
Gotcha.
But there is definitely something, you know, because I was in ICU, and you see a lot of, you know, tough stuff go down on that floor. You know, there's lots of crazy stuff that's going on. And then, you know, one particular night there was some kind of commotion that was going on. And, you know, it was scary. And then the next morning I'm walking around, and, you know, I'm tethered to this IV pole and everything. But I'm walking with Mom, and she's like, oh my gosh, all this is going on, da 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 da. And I instantly thought of what happened the night before with that kind of commotion that was going on. And I'm like, I'm actually pretty lucky. I mean, it's a tough mindset to keep, but when you see some stuff that kind of happens, it kind of puts you in your place a little bit.
I mean, one of the things that I found really resonated with me personally in your book is, I think your father said it to you.
Yep.
Said, you've got it tough, but there's always someone who's got it tougher than you.
It's true. And I mean, to me, that, you know, that experience there, that definitely kind of rang true. So it's not like, well, kind of the saying that I always kind of grew up with was, you can always find people that are better off than you, and you can always find people that, you know, might have it a bit tougher. And that kind of situation there in ICU, that definitely kind of put me in my place and made me go, okay, this stinks, but, you know, there aren't any setbacks. There wasn't anything that kind of, you know, went wrong with the procedure. Everything was moving, you know, forward as it should be. There wasn't anything scary. So was it tough? Absolutely. But it's kind of like, you know, you got to have the mindset, okay, this is what happened. You know, things are moving forward. It might be tough, you know, it might not be the most, you know, pleasant situation to be in, but at least things are moving forward, and, you know, things are...
Gotcha.
pretty good.
Now, talking about things that are pretty good, like you obviously get a great deal of joy from playing the guitar.
Absolutely.
That reflects in the way you play and your facial expression and your body expression. Yeah. Because you remind me of Angus Young. You throw your you throw your body into it.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's definitely a lot of Angus in my playing. That's definitely something that shines through, whether I wanted to or not. I mean, Angus. I could go on for like an hour with Angus, but Angus, Angus is kind of I always say like the cornerstone, like the bedrock. I'm like, if people are like, what kind of style do you play? I'm like, just listen to any AC/DC. I'm like, Angus is kind of the foundation of my playing and how I play. But yeah, music is definitely a big crutch.
So is that what got you? Is that what got you playing guitar, Angus Young, or what was the catalyst?
It's interesting. There's a lot of kind of moments looking back that I can see where it kind of, was pushing me to picking up the guitar. But the big thing that I think was I used to live in Michigan for the first 15 years of my life.
Okay.
And then we did the big move from Michigan to Illinois in between my 8th grade and freshman year of high school. So, I mean, overall, a pretty good transition period for when you're moving states.
Right.
But still, with me, I'm like, okay, I'm moving states. I don't know anybody. It's kind of like, what's going on? So music was something that really I leaned into that kind of helped me cope with, adjusting to a new school, adjusting to, new surroundings, new everything.
Yeah, new everything.
So that was a big one. So, and then it kind of went on through my freshman year of high school. I was just listening to a lot of music, and then it kind of boiled over one day. It was just kind of a question I said to myself. I'm like, what if I learned, I love listening to these guys play guitar. It sounds so cool, especially Angus. You see him running around and doing all this crazy stuff. It's like, how does he do it? So it's just out of curiosity. I said to my dad I'm thinking of learning how to play guitar. He's like, really? And he actually played when he was in high school. So he had it's like a Fender Music Master.
Gotcha.
And this big PV amp and a TS9 tube screamer. And it was all in this box that was still in storage, and he wheeled that out. And then I went on YouTube and just started trying to look up lessons and chords, and I was obsessed ever since. That was kind of I haven't put it down since.
Then my next question was going to be, what was your learning process? I guess you just answered that was YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube is definitely still one of the ways I like to look. Basically anything visual.
Right.
And, listening to, because I mean, over time you kind of develop, ironically, you develop an ear for this stuff, right?
Yeah, in your case, literally.
Yeah. But, so I love watching people play and kind of seeing what I could pick out. But there was actually there's a School of Rock franchise.
Right.
There was one there was a school that opened up like right down the road, like not even 5 minutes from our house. So I started taking lessons there, and they have a performance group there. So I started doing, some performances. Really that's where I really learned how to play with a band.
Gotcha.
And jamming with other people. So that was really fun. And actually, I did some camps here at Sweetwater, too.
That's right. I heard that rumor. Heard that vicious rumor.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing that, by the way.
Oh, it was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
So you've mentioned Angus. Who else inspired you playing-wise?
Yeah, Angus is definitely probably the biggest, and especially with guitar choice,
And who else would you say is in that list?
Slash is definitely a big one. When I heard Appetite. I think people are kind of familiar with him.
Yeah.
But Slash, Jimmy Page, let's see.
You mentioned another SG user as well.
Tony Iommi. Yeah. Tony Iommi's a big one.
And I did that because he's a lefty. But
yes,
hence the monkey behind us. But anyway.
Yeah.
Now, so you learned from YouTube and by watching and other people and playing at the rock school and stuff, School of Rock and stuff like that. When it comes to your inspiration, you've mentioned your family, but your positive outlook. Are there any people outside of your family that you gained inspiration from? I mentioned a guy called David Goggins before, who I find I like people who talk inspirational stuff, but they've actually walked their talk. And there's a lot of people out there regurgitating other people's stuff, which you're definitely not doing. You walk your talk every day. And, people like Tony Robbins, there's a guy called Jocko Willem-X and all these sort of guys. Is there anyone you listened to or read that helped you get your positive attitude?
Yes. Actually, this is a pretty cool story. A long time ago, when I still lived in Michigan, I forget exactly what it was. It was a long time ago. But when I was little, we did some type of charity work. And I talk at hospitals, too. I think it was with faculty. With like I can't remember if it was like new doctors coming in. It was a while ago. But we go down and talk to the hospital. And in 2008, the Detroit Red Wings won the Stanley Cup. Or I think that was the year. But anyway, I remember this really well. The Red Wings won the Stanley Cup, and somehow we, through the hospital, we got tickets to a game, and we got to meet, the coach at the time was Mike Babcock.
Right.
And
I've heard of him.
Yeah, it's really cool. Basically, one of the things that Mike said was, he told me, and I do remember this. I was like 8 at the time. I was really young, but I do remember when I talked to him, he said this to me. Kind of told him, Mama kind of told him my story a little bit and just kind of talked with him for a while. But he said, Peter, you could be a difference maker. And that always kind of stuck with me. And I feel like over time, it's like that quote that he said to me really has kind of stuck with me, more and more throughout my life. And it's kind of wild, because I didn't, at 8 years old, I don't think I didn't really appreciate it at the time, but it's kind of just interesting looking back, looking at when he said that to me, just kind of over time. How that's really kind of shaped me, as a person. It's just kind of how that quote's kind of followed me throughout my life.
Right.
And I did get to see him again a couple of years ago and kind of talk to him about all this stuff. What he said to me, and I'm like, I think I really took that to heart. And it was good to kind of catch up with him again and talk with him. So
thank goodness for him and your folks, because that was almost like a pivotal point in your life.
Yes.
Because you've already mentioned it. I know last night you were in town, but you spoke at a school.
Yeah.
And, I taught someone last night whose daughter was at that, and they said it was
cool.
great.
Yeah.
But what drives you to do that? Like, you speak in hospitals, you speak to other kids, you go to schools.
I mean,
what's the driving force behind you, young man? Because I want some of it.
Yeah.
Bottle it and give it to me. No, joking aside, actually, no, I'm serious. Give me a bottle what you've got. But what drives you?
Well, especially with schools, especially now, because with COVID and all that, and the past few years have been really tough, especially with students. So going, now with going into schools and kind of sharing my story, I really hope that in all the stuff that I've been through, in addition to that, with the joy of music, really hoping to pick kids up and just, inspire them to be the best versions of themselves that they can be, really kind of show them like, hey, okay, I've had these mountains to climb. And, I've still found my passion for playing guitar and, all this stuff, and kind of sharing my story. I hope that it inspires kids to kind of, maybe take a look at, their life a little bit and realize, okay, when they do have a tough situation that they're in, it only lasts a moment. You can push through it. You can keep going.
What's that old saying? This too will pass.
Something
exactly. Like that. Yeah, no, that's a great mindset. And the other thing that impresses me, and I'm going to speak this to the camera, when this guy is offered money, he insists it goes to charity. That's something I'm ashamed to say. I wish I did more. But so I applaud you for that. That speaks volumes to your personality and character. And
yeah, I mean, and the charity that instantly, there's a few, but there's one that instantly comes to my mind that I've grown up with through my whole life. They're called Children's Craniofacial Association. And there's lots of cool things that CCA has done. But one of my favorite things is every year, kind of at the end of June, they do an annual retreat. And basically, it's amazing. Because for me, having grown up with the retreat, it's almost like a family reunion.
Gotcha.
I get to reconnect with these kids and, families that I've, grown up knowing. And it's great, too, because not only, do I get to meet other kids and kind of, share that, have gone through something similar, but it's great because I can kind of help mentor younger kids.
Right.
And, you, especially with, like, some of these families, you meet, a family that has a really young kid, and just kind of seeing, especially, from the parents' reaction that, especially if it's like their first time, at a retreat, and maybe they haven't seen many people that have gone through something similar, kind of, seeing their reaction to knowing that they're not really alone. And, it really is a big support network. It really is amazing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, that's a wonderful story. I'm so glad you do that. And I guess you're the light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of these people. They probably look at them, if Pete can get to where he's got, then We can too.
I mean, it's interesting. I never really like set out to be an inspiration or anything like that. But it's like, with me, it's like if sharing my story can help somebody else in any way, you know, help them pick themselves up, and maybe give them a little bit of a push to do something. You know, to me, that's the big thing. It's like, I'm not trying to be an inspiration, but it's like if somebody, you know, can hear my story and, you know, it motivates them in some way to do something, that's the main thing for me.
I would say you're just being you, basically, and that's what you are. You know, I love the fact that you have that in the book you mentioned, choose joy on more than one occasion.
Yeah, I mean, it is tough, but you got to try and look at the bright side as much as possible.
And talking of the bright side, so you've got a book out, you're doing all these speaking engagements, you're playing with your band and stuff.
Yeah.
What ambitions do you have, number one, as a guitar player, and number two, as Pete?
Ooh.
Not the guitar player, just Pete. So Pete the guitar player and Pete not the guitar player. Go.
Oh, that's
5, 4, no, I'm kidding.
Man, that's a pretty deep question. I guess with Pete the guitar player, I love playing live. That's always been my favorite thing. I love, you know, jamming all these classic tunes and jams and sharing them with people online, because I know it picks, you know, people up and they enjoy it. But I love performing live. You know, there's just something about, you know, there's that magic of playing with a band. And, you know, with me and my band, it's a 3-piece. So there's something really kind of powerful with that, you know, especially playing with 2 other people, how tight you get. And just, I guess the main thing as a musician, keep getting tighter with the band and keep playing more places, because I really do get a kick out of playing live. Just what goes into that, the excitement, the energy. That's my favorite thing about playing guitar. It's all, you know, energy and excitement. That's always been my favorite thing. Now Pete the person. I don't know. I guess I'd say I'll just try and keep doing what I'm doing. You know, there's definitely going to be more stuff that pops up. You know, more, I guess, mountains to climb. Medically, everything seems to be kind of okay for a while.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Well, there's always some surprises in store. I've found out, but for right now, things seem to be going okay. So it's just kind of like, okay, you know, if there is, you know, and I'm sure when something else appears, you know, try and keep up that mindset. You know, try and keep, you know, walking the walk. Try to keep persevering and keep sharing my story, and just, again, seeing if it helps people. And I think it has.
Well, from personally speaking, I really enjoyed the book.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. Don't change, please. Don't change. Don't get any better on the damn guitar, because you're already better than me, though, so stop it. And I'm going to ask you to play it, but first I just want to say sincerely, Pete, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so much.
And if you don't own the book, write that wrong immediately. You got it? Write it wrong immediately. That said, Pete, play us out.
All right. Thank you.